Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. Our guest today, Milana Kleidman. Milana, it's really good to have you on. I appreciate you being here. And could you tell us, first of all, where you're calling in from and what you do for a living with Klok Kids?
Absolutely. So I'm calling in from Toronto, Canada, and I'm the founder of Klok Kids. We are the creators of the all-weather set for kids. We have a very consolidated product line, really just focused on well-made, premium, all-weather sets for kids that are easy for kids and parents. They're matching and they're super versatile.
Yeah, I love them. They're super too. I was obviously taking a look at it before we started today. But yeah, I guess tell me a little bit more about your background, I suppose. What got you, wanting to get involved in this space with kids clothing? And what did you kind of notice out there on the market as far as a problem or something you were looking to do better or different with this brand?
For sure. I mean, my background, actually, I'm a marketer by trade. So I have almost 20 years of marketing experience. I've been sort of in the corporate world for quite some time. But obviously, having my own kids, I've seen certain patterns, in terms of how they get dressed in the mornings, what I tend to gravitate towards in their wardrobe. And what I really noticed in the market was that there were a lot of options, but a lot of them were really poorly constructed. And so what ended up happening, at least for me, a lot of the clothes in my kids' wardrobe would wind up, really like just wrinkled at the bottom of a laundry basket. They would never get worn. And the things that were in constant rotation were the ones that they seemed to enjoy the most. They were the most comfortable. They were the most versatile and just the most well-made, because they had, extended life. So, in starting Klok, I really wanted to bring that to market, is really focus on well-made, versatile wear to really help extend the life of a child's wardrobe. So that was my intention.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. And I guess when you started this brand, like in your initial launch, you first brought it to market, what was your kind of go-to-market strategy as far as like how you're looking to sell it? Were you looking to get involved in retail spaces for selling these? Were you looking to do more of the direct-to-consumer model for parents? What was your general kind of strategy when you first started out? And if that's different, leading up to today, I'm curious to hear that as well.
Yeah, so definitely my go-to-market strategy was direct-to-consumer. I was planning to work with influencers. I had experience of working with influencers in the past and getting the product in their hands and just, getting really well-made content that I can then share, and obviously gives me gives me that social proof that I would have been looking for. So I did that in the beginning, but to be honest, the response was not exactly what I had expected. And so I started to explore other channels, doing direct to consumer shows. So in Toronto, we have a biannual baby show. So that is a consumer show with multi-brand. And so I exhibited there as well as a way to launch the brand into the world. And again, get in front of consumers and get some sort of, immediate feedback. So I did that. And then as I sort of tested and learned, the direct to consumer space from an ads perspective, I also wanted to try other channels. So I did a couple of pop-ups as well at local boutiques. Again, just getting in front of the consumer, telling the story and getting real-time feedback.
It's amazing. I guess I'm curious, when you started kind of doing direct to consumer through socials and whatever paid advertising you were doing, what was kind of the reaction you were going for versus what you got, and the pivot that you had to make, I guess, at that point?
Yeah, I think it's a constant sort of evolution of what resonates from a messaging standpoint. And when I kind of started, I was like, okay, well, if I post images of cute kids and cute clothes, that's got to sell, right? That's the billboard. But that wasn't really the case, right? You really do have to tell the story around sort of personal story, founder story, and really get into the details of why this brand makes sense and why consumers should buy in and should pay a premium for this line. So that was what I saw initially. And so again, it's just a lot of testing and learning with the content itself. What is it that I want to say seems to resonate? I did notice that when I would post a lot more content just around the versatility of the design and the thoughtful design behind the product, that's what would get the most response. So just doing more of that is something that I need to continue to do.
It's so fascinating. Like, so basically you found like the storytelling aspect and really the functionality about it, just going further than like that's more, I guess, like more traditional, just like billboard cute kids in the outfits, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I think with young parents and young people in general, whether it's their food, the clothes that they wear, the things that they're drinking, whatever it is, I think people are really bought into like the stories and like having a relationship with where that stuff is coming from, whether it's clothes they buy for themselves or their kids or the food that they're eating or things like that. So I'm not surprised to hear that. It's so fascinating what seems to be resonating with kind of like these younger demographics, older Gen Z, millennial, younger parents. And I guess to that point, in terms of the products, what is kind of your, I suppose, like ideal customer and like what kind of age range? Do these come with like different sizing options for like kids with different ages? Obviously, one of the hardest things for kids is obviously, they grow out of things in like, sometimes 3 months in those like really toddler years, right? So how do you kind of grapple with that? And what is your kind of like ideal age range for the parents of children that you're selling to now?
So the line is currently designed for kids ages 12 months up to 4 years. And I am working on expanding that to include larger sizes. I've had a lot of feedback that parents are interested in getting this type of suit for kids up to age 10. So I am looking at expanding the range, but absolutely you're right. Like parents do grapple with the fact that their kids grow pretty quickly. So it's a challenge to break through when you have super cheap and cheerful products that come from fast fashion brands. But one of the things that I'm really leaning into as well is just the life that these garments have. They extend past, the one kid. You can definitely repurpose for the next kid and the kid after that because of the construction, right? They're super well made. They're made with 2 layers. So, even if they're getting pretty rough, it will last. And so it's really like talking through that proposition that is not just like a one and done, but really has an extension beyond that first kid. And in terms of the demographic, of course, parents are a target. But I'm also really trying to focus on grandparents, particularly grandma that understands the benefit of a quality garment, wants to get her grandkids something a little bit special. And so I'm really trying to find her as well.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And to the point of that, like, this is obviously a very kind of like novel design, novel product. Have you had any opportunities to do any sort of like private labeling, white labeling? Has anybody approached you with any of those opportunities, or is that something that you would entertain going forward?
Definitely something that is on the horizon for me. I am actually going to be in Q4 working on securing placement at some ski clubs up north.
And I could definitely see that with this, yeah.
Yeah, it really just aligns with the occasion. So it's kind of like that, après ski feel, and really again targeting the members, but also speaking to the clubs themselves and seeing if there's an opportunity to do something directly, like as a white label for them.
Yeah, super interesting. So do you think you would go with that kind of down the route of like, brand X brand or brand X like resort, or is that something you kind of just leave up to them with like the designs and just kind of give them a blank slate to work with? I'm always curious, like the private labeling side of things with a lot of the growing brands that come on the podcast. They're always interesting conversations because especially very early on, as you know, as a brand owner and myself as well, kind of it can feel like your baby, you don't want to give it away. You don't want to have anything else on it besides like, what comes from your own mind, right? So but that's awesome that you're open to that opportunity. And obviously, as long as you're diligent in those conversations, obviously, you shouldn't have to worry too much about any of those kinds of things that people might be fearful of. But I guess how do you kind of envision like any like sort of those opportunities going forward? Would it be like, I guess like your brand X, like whatever, or would it just kind of be like a blank slate that way?
I'd be pretty open to a blank slate. I'm thinking about, this is what my current collection looks like, but that doesn't mean that it stays the way that it is today, right? I'm always thinking about what is the next iteration, what's 2.0 look like. So I'm not sort of married to like holding on to this, because I think the beauty of this category is that there's a lot of need or a lot of demand for that creativity. And so, yeah, I'm definitely open to keeping it a blank slate because it is a business at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great perspective that you have on that. And what's even more is, if you do kind of offer that blank slate to say like, hey, like you can do whatever you want. We'll even help you like, put whatever designs you want on it, like as a partnership here to kind of get even some more feedback on like certain types of designs or colors or anything like that. I think it'd only be, that feedback is valuable to you as well as obviously the partnership. So no, I think it's a really good perspective. I think some folks can be a little apprehensive to those types of opportunities just from like I don't want to call it like egotistical, but just sort of like, just kind of want to like hold it close sort of feel, you know what I mean? But one other thing I was curious about as well, obviously you being in Toronto, being a Canadian company, where have you kind of found your like strongest foothold as far as like where you're selling? Is it mostly still in Canada today? Are you looking to penetrate more into like the US market? What does that kind of look like for you as far as the D2C sales go?
Yeah, I'm definitely open to US as well. So just thinking from a geographical perspective, still sort of focusing on the Northeast market, sort of that tri-state area, Chicago, potentially Colorado and like the Aspen area. California, just kind of going where the cold tends to hit. So from a geographical standpoint, but that is definitely on the horizon. I think in the immediate term, so particularly with the upcoming winter season, I'm definitely going to be focused on the local market. Again, just trying to really penetrate where I can access most easily here and then leverage the paid channels for the US.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And I guess there's one other thing I'm always curious about is obviously most founders of growing brands have a pretty lean team around them. Obviously some opportunity for outsourcing certain things. How do you kind of take care of your marketing tasks? I know you have a marketing background, but obviously running the business and the operative side and everything else, I'm sure it takes up more than enough of your time where you just probably can't put enough effort towards that as you would like. How do you kind of have that set up as far as executing on those marketing tasks? Do you have an internal team? Is that something that you kind of contract out or work with agencies? What does that kind of look like for you when you think about, a new campaign and whether it's on your socials or your paid advertising, who's actually executing that for you?
Honestly, it's all kind of me.
Wow.
The only outsourcing that I really do is just with regards to photography and videography. That's something that I will, invest dollars against. I'm working with smaller sort of, groups, like entrepreneurial group, just to learn more about tactics that I can execute, particularly around e-commerce and of course, the paid ad strategy. So I'm sort of trying to learn it all on my own and execute on my own, which it is very challenging for sure. I think the key is really just to focus on core priorities. So for me, for the past 6 months, I would say it was really around social and testing and learning within the social space, both from a paid and an organic standpoint. But I think what I'm going to be moving towards is more around building my email list and really focusing on that. So it's going to shift, and I think my needs are going to shift a little bit as well. So outsourcing is definitely not out of the question, but of course, as a founder, I'm trying to be as frugal as possible, but it also gives me the opportunity to learn new things.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a great perspective on it, especially experiencing the growth that you are and the kind of early stages like you are. I think it's important to kind of have your dip your toes in the water in each individual part so that when you go and do that outsourcing, what a good job in doing that looks like. So at least you have something to go off in the way that that you like it done. That's advice that I've gotten from a lot of people on the podcast. One of these questions I always ask, one of the answers and advice that I always get is basically just, don't outsource too early or do more outsourcing early on. So it's just a really funny, depending on the industry and depending on the stage of the business or when it was founded, it seems like there's just a lot of differing perspectives on that. And I am curious to hear your answer to this as well. It is something I always love to ask everybody that comes on the podcast, which is basically just, if you could go back to right before you were pre-revenue, right before you went to market for the first time, you could give yourself any one piece of advice. What do you think that piece of advice would be?
To be honest, I think I would tell myself to take a little bit more time and not rush into anything. I think that's the biggest takeaway for me. I think a lot of times we give ourselves these timelines that are difficult to achieve. And so on the one hand, it's great because it gives us some positive momentum, right? And we just kind of keep pushing. That's a great part of it. But on the flip side, can lead us to make some rash choices. And, we're the only ones that are really driving those timelines. Nobody else around us is really checking where we're at. So that's my thought.
Yeah, no, I think it's really good advice. And it's another thing that I hear pretty often, especially with CPG brands that are really in the food and beverage space. I mean, but if you're doing CPG at all, that roadmap is just long. I mean, one of the most common answers actually that I get is expect that your initial product development and launch is going to take probably 10 times longer than you expect, especially if you're coming from outside of anything CPG, if you maybe haven't went through that before. So I think it is really good advice. It's really valuable for anybody listening who there are a lot of other entrepreneurs listening that are maybe looking to get into a venture like this. I think it is, when you hear it for the 50th time over 200 podcasts, it's not really anecdotal evidence anymore. So I appreciate you being part of that conversation as well. So, but yeah, Milana, I just want to give you an opportunity as well for anybody listening that might be interested in potentially partnering with you in a business sense, or just want to check out the product and see if maybe they can get their hands on it. What's the best way to stay in touch with you all?
Yeah, so you can check out the website. It's www.klokkids.com. You can also connect on Instagram at klok.kids. And I'm also recently active on LinkedIn, so happy to connect and chat with anybody directly through that platform. You can look me up, Milana Kleidman, and happy to chat with anybody and talk about opportunity.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate your time. We want to wish you the best of luck, continued success, and everything that you're doing. It's awesome. They're super cute. So hopefully, when you get to the US, maybe I could definitely see this being a gift to my nieces and nephews. So look forward to staying in touch and to that time as well.
Thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.